Today we're going to talk about a passage that blends simile, metaphors, and personification. It's a comparison between stones and rocks and a human heart. This passage, it blends the simile of a stone and the metaphor of the extended comparison of a human heart and a rock. In addition to personification of stone or stones, gushing, splitting, and bound down in awe out of love and tenderness. It overturns the assumptions that the rock is hard, lifeless, becomes the symbol of tenderness, love, compassion, humility, and life-giving force. While the human heart, designed for love, compassion, mercy, becomes less than a stone if it refuses to feel and to fulfill the purpose of it. Now let's see, we're going to go to chapter 2, verse 74. So chapter 2, verse 74, Surat al-Baqarah, or al-Baqarah, which is, if you know Spanish, or vaca, or vache in French, vaca in Spanish, al-Baqarah in Arabic. I would like to read the verses as usual in Arabic first, and then we will go over the English translation and then the cherry analysis of the verse. It starts with أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ثم قست قلوبكم من بعد ذلك فهي كالحجارة أو أشد قسوة وإن من الحجارة لما يتفجر منه الأنهار وإن منها لما يشقق فيخرج منه الماء وإن منها لما يهبط من خشية الله وما الله بغافل عما تعملون صدق الله العظيم. Now, let's go over the English translation, and then we will see the translation, and we will dig deeper to understand the deep meaning of that particular verse. It starts with, then your hearts, addressing humans. Your hearts become, or rather, then your hearts became hardened after that. The context is a dialogue between God and a human, that God provided everything in advance, all the gifts, including our senses, our intellect, and above all, our ability to love, which makes us a human. So it talks about how the human heart became hardened, being like stones. That's a simile, like stones, or even harder. For indeed, there are stones from which rivers burst forth. And there are some stones that split open and water comes out of it. And there are some of them that fall down out of awe of God, of Allah in Arabic. And Allah, God in Arabic, is not unaware of what you do. Addressing humans who have hard-hearted behavior, whether to be parents toward their children or vice versa, or friends, or spouses, or humans against other humans. It starts with your hearts became hardened, like stones or even harder. There's an imagery here. Can we think about the imagery? There is a comparison, there's a simile, because your hearts hardened like, right? Like stones. So that's a simile. And the imagery is the comparison of hearts to stones. And that's a simile, as I said. The explicit like or as makes it a simile. But it develops into a metaphor. That simile develops into a metaphor as the verse unfolds. Let's see how. Giving the stones the characteristics that expose the human heart's failure. So heart failure is not an illness, a physical illness, but rather it's an emotional one. Now, the meaning. The heart created to love and to feel love and to reciprocate love and to respond to love has become more unfeeling than stone. This is both, I would say, an ethical argument in relationship to humans among each other, and also a theological argument in a human's relation to God, who created him out from nothing and gave it all. All right, so here it shows how language, the language that we use, can elevate abstract ideas and concepts and inanimate objects. And if we're talking about it spiritually, then we're talking about elevating stones and abstract ideas like what? The spiritual deadness. That's an abstract idea. Love is an abstract idea into something that is visual and relatable, that everyone can relate to in their own life experience. That's the first verse. But the second verse, it says, indeed. Remember, indeed, an Arabic word, indeed, inna, right? There are stones from which rivers burst forth. Do you see how they can be so powerful? The imagery here of the verb yatafajjar, the fajjara or fajjara, it means explodes, to gush, to explode. It conveys a sudden force, an unstoppable flow of love, emotions, and tenderness. Almost like a volcanic eruption. You could think of it this way. This is, we call it personification. Why? Because you're taking an object that's inanimate or non-living and you're making it like a person. That's personification, giving the rock a kind of a hidden human passion or emotion that suddenly erupts. Okay? The meaning here is a rock, though seemingly lifeless, has the capacity to release abundance, which is what? Rivers. Okay? By contrast, a hard heart blocks what it was created for: love, mercy, passion, and compassion, generosity, as well as empathy. Now, the paradox here between the rock that gives life and the human with hard hearts do not um, that does not fulfill its purpose of loving and being compassionate. It forces us to not only to think and ponder, but it forces us to reflect. And that's what we need to think about. And this is how this particular verse engages us. Now, the third verse, it says, and there are some stones that split open and water comes out of it. You see? The imagery here is the cracking stone suggests what? Tenderness, fragility. It's fragile beneath that hardness. When we look at the stone, we think it's hard, yet we don't know that a stone is more tender than a hard-hearted human. Even the toughest surfaces and stones, like what? Like diamond, for example, that cuts everything, right? And it's not easily cracked. Even the toughest surfaces surrender. It bows down in awe out of love and produce life-giving water. Now, here we see that nature obeys its creator by yielding and releasing good. A heart that does not crack open in compassion, in love, in empathy at least, is failing its divine design. And that's the true heart failure, not the physical one. It's certainly not the physical one. Okay. Now, this is extended imagery, as we said. That's an imagery of a rock as more responsive and compassionate than a human heart. Okay. The fourth verse here, and there are some that fall down out of awe of God, out of love. You know, when you love, you have humility. You want to serve because you love. So here we see that the imagery of a rock is personified. There's personification here. It falls down as if it bows down in humility, trembling before God, before its creator, out of love. It's described like a believer bound down in awe, as we know in ruku' or sujud, which is prostration, right? It drops in prostration out of awe and love and respect and appreciation of its creator. Now, the meaning, even inanimate objects or creations like rocks, they display love and reverence. The rock, thought of as cold, lifeless, and unfeeling, demonstrates love, awe, compassion, and above all, submission, loving submission to its creator. By implication, the heart that refuses to soften is lower than a stone. This is a very powerful image and reversal. Human expects rocks to be lifeless, but here they are depicted, they are more alive than human hearts who are hard. Okay, now the fifth verse, it ends with what? And Allah is not unaware of what you do. God is not unaware of what you do. Whether you wrong a family member by being hard-hearted, a friend, or someone who's near and dear to you, God knows it all. So we hope that God opens our hearts to feel love and to reciprocate love with those that we are responsible for. That's number one. And also for every member of our human family. Now, the imagery here is the closing of these verses remind us that the closing of it, it reminds us that hardness of heart is not hidden from God, and we are accountable for it. While rocks testify and demonstrate through their behavior, human hearts are accountable for refusing their intended purpose. The meaning here that we need to, and the lesson to be learned is there is not only spiritual, but ethical. This is not only spiritual, but ethical. Hardness of hearts manifests in how people treat others, lacking love, mercy, kindness, compassion, or even justice. As we said, this passage blends simile, like stones, metaphor, the extended comparison between hearts and rocks, and personification, stones gushing, splitting, bound down out of love and compassion and appreciation. It overturns our assumptions that rock, hard, and lifeless, rock, hard, and lifeless becomes the symbol of love, tenderness, compassion, humility, and life-giving force, as I said at the beginning. I'm wrapping up. Now, at the same time, rocks are loving while the human heart, designed for love, for compassion, becomes less than a stone if it refuses to love, to feel, to have empathy for others. Do you see now how can we use simile, metaphors, and personification to create the image and to bring to life by using the language and engage the readers and make them reflect and think critically about the text. Not only that, but how to connect with our own lives, our own experiences, and learn from everything around us in nature. Thank you.